Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Weather Central forecast. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Now, in today's video, we will be going over my official spring forecast. Now, I do want to start off with a disclaimer that these forecasts and outlooks are my opinion. They're based off of model guidances, long-range models, and past occurrences of weather. I am a weather enthusiast, not a meteorologist, as that should be known. For the most accurate and up-to-date weather, please consult your national local weather service office. I do hope that you guys do enjoy the forecast. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So we're looking at our temperature outlook here, and you can see anywhere in the blue is indicating slightly to moderately to well below average conditions, and that's extending for parts of the west into the Cascades, into the Pacific Northwest. We're seeing some parts of the mountainous regions of California seeing those well below average conditions. And that is what has been indicated by most of these models, a well below average mountainous region into California. We're seeing a below average region extending from parts of Oregon all the way into parts of central and western Arizona, extending into parts of southwestern Utah as well. Seeing those below average conditions, and those slightly below average conditions, anywhere from your seasonal outlook temperatures to your 5 degrees below seasonal average conditions. Will be indicated in these lighter blues here, or darker blues here. In this white, we have equal chances. It's not a guaranteed winner whether you're going to have cooler conditions or warmer conditions. Best way I could describe this is a flip-flop region. Obviously, the more closer that you are to this warmer than average condition, expect more warm conditions, but obviously you guys do have that chance of a cool down. If you're closer to the blue, expect cooler conditions, but you do also have that chance for a warm-up throughout these regions. In the orange, I have slightly above average. Now, this goes without saying. It's basically the same thing as these regions that we just went over, just for the above average conditions, and that's going to be anywhere from your seasonal temperature to 5 degrees above average on a normal day. Obviously, expect cool downs because that will happen as we get into spring. As severe weather moves through, you have those cold fronts and those boundary lines setting up, which still is unknown. Obviously, we have to be close to that event to predict that. In this yellow here, we have above average. This is where I'm expecting anywhere from 5 to maybe 10 degrees above average on a normal day. Obviously, with those cool downs, though, as we get into severe weather season, and obviously cool downs just are normal, obviously, throughout the United States in these regions. In the red here, it's going to be really nice for the parts of the north because they have been seeing very cold conditions and a drought, but recently they've been seeing some warmer conditions and they've seen some snow actually, but you guys are going to be seeing some well above average conditions into parts of the north. That extends for parts of Minnesota down to northern Illinois, into parts of Michigan, Wisconsin, into parts of Iowa as well. Seeing those well above average conditions, you're expecting 10 to 15 degrees above your seasonal temperatures on a normal day, but you also could see those temperatures go down a little bit, as that is bound to happen with these cool downs. So here is the Weather Central precipitation outlook. This is going off of long-range model guidances. I compiled the data from a few of these models, and this is what I came up with. You have a slightly above average precipitation for the Pacific Northwest into the Cascades. That's also extending into parts of central, southern, and into the Tennessee Valley, with those slightly above average. And you can see that kind of goes through up Tornado Alley. Obviously, we do have some above average conditions in the Tornado Alley too, but this could be hinting towards a severe weather season throughout these regions, especially for spring, because that's when we usually do see those most severe weathers, when you're getting the clash between the warm and the cold. Obviously, it's more predominant in spring than it is in summer, because summer is usually just hot. But where we get those boundary changes in temperatures, that's really where we see our most severe weather. When we get those cold fronts going in, and we have the precipitation there, usually it's the ingredients for a tornado. In this slightly below average region, expect your seasonal to just a little bit below your average precipitation for these areas. Same thing here. I expect a little bit more of a drought for the areas in the darker yellow. And then obviously as you get to these oranges, expect, a drought with an occasional rain. There still was chances of mountain snow throughout spring. throughout these areas. I just don't know how, you know, how if that precipitation will make it down to the ground or not, and what that'll entail. But obviously, we'll get into that when those systems do occur, because I will be making forecasts on those as we get closer to those events. So here is my severe weather outlook. Now this might look a little confusing, but basically the higher number you have, the greater chance of severe weather you have. And my greatest chance that I do see throughout all these models with long-range CAPE values, long-range wind shears, long-range precipitation, temperature, the boundaries where they meet up, I am seeing the highest chance into parts of the Ozarks, into the Tennessee Valley, into parts of Paducah, Kentucky as well, seeing those highest chances of severe weather. In these gray here, the reason why I have such a high range is because, obviously the more southern regions will see severe weather, but there's going to be some times where the systems will just miss them by a lot. And most of these systems are looking like a west to east system throughout the long range. Obviously, we do have some of that Gulf moisture, and so that's why I just had such a big range, because I'm not sure how much Gulf moisture is actually going to be available once these storms do decide to develop. I do have a 3 region up here into the pink and purplish. The reason why I have a 3 is because it really just depends on where those temperatures lie. If you guys do see those well above average conditions, I expect a 3 to be a 3 to hold true. On a scale of 6, you guys have a half of a greatest chance of seeing that severe weather. But if the temperatures don't play out like they should, and you guys are still in the 50s and 40s, maybe even lower 60s too, you might not see all that severe weather. But the temperature and the precipitation really lines up within these 4 to 5 regions, and that's where I do have the greatest confidence that severe weather will occur. And that's obviously extending into some parts of Tornado Alley. You can see most of Tornado Alley is at least in a 2 to 6 region here, in terms of the intensity and the chances. In my opinion, obviously, like my disclaimer said, I am no ways a meteorologist. I'm a weather enthusiast, so consult your guys' National Weather Service providers if you guys do have any questions on that, as they will have the most accurate information for that. So before we end this video, I do want to go over a temperature outlook. Once again, obviously we went over this last forecast, but just seeing what the updated models are showing for the United States in terms of temperature. So we're still seeing these cooler than average conditions off to the northwest or to the northeast, where we did see those wind chill warnings. We're seeing some cooler conditions into parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, into parts of into parts of western Maine, and into parts of northern New York. We're seeing some cooler conditions down to the south as well into parts of Louisiana. We're seeing a warm-up throughout most of the north into parts of northern Kansas, extending up to Michigan. We are seeing anywhere from 2.5 to up to 20 degrees above average, maybe some higher amounts in isolated areas. We're seeing sort of a warm-up off to the west, with some isolated areas and a cool-down. That's most likely going to be your mountainous regions there. And you do have a slight cool-down down to the parts of Texas. The more east or the more west you go down to the border of into Mexico, you're seeing those cooler conditions. As we move this on, you can see maybe the cold decides to stick around a little bit for parts of the deep south into Louisiana. Nothing crazy. We're still seeing that warm up into parts of the north, especially Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota, seeing that biggest warm up overall. You can still see that warm up still holding true throughout those regions. We see a nice warm up extending down into the deep south, which throughout these models they've been seeing some cooler conditions. So that's definitely going to be good. We're seeing some cooler conditions still off to the northeast, but it's just going to be a slight cool down. And then we see, maybe a clash of the two throughout these regions. And we see this warm air start to take over. And that's just because look at how hot it is up in Canada. That's just going to feed down into the United States. And we have such a sharp cutoff between anywhere from 12 to 16 degrees below average all the way up to 12 to 16 degrees above average. So we're going to see some very sharp temperature differences throughout the regions into parts of the mountainous areas, into Utah, into those Appalachian Mountains as well. We're seeing a good warm-up for parts of the north, like was indicated in my temperature anomalies. forecast. You can see just a massive cool down or a massive warm up for parts of the extreme north. You're seeing some of this warmer air as well into parts of the south central, and that's really going to hold true for a little while. We might see a little bit of a cool down. We're seeing some very, very warm conditions throughout, parts of the north into the south central, into the Midwest, throughout these regions. Even some parts of Florida seeing, decently above average temperatures, especially indicated in that darker red. We can see parts of Montana starting to get a cool down, and that's really going to set the stakes for maybe possible severe weather. As we see this gets into Tornado Alley, we're seeing a big temperature clash throughout these regions. Now, obviously, all of this is speculation. Take what I say with a grain of salt, but, severe weather in the near future does look to be very promising, especially for parts of Tornado Alley. So if you guys are in Tornado Alley, obviously have stuff ready as we get into spring. You guys will know well before a big tornado outbreak is going to happen, as the National Weather Service and other providers will inform you about that. And also stay tuned to my channel for updated forecasts if tornado outbreaks do become a question in the forecast. So that is about it for this forecast. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next forecast.